setup right now. It has that single 12 megapixel sensor. You have optical image stabilization, which is great, and you have the ability of shooting 4K at 30 and 1080p at 60 and 720p at 240 if you want to do that. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but I will tell you, in this day and age, it is pretty important to have, 4K at 60, and obviously we have 8K capability now, so it would be kind of cool how we had that capability on this device, but obviously, and I'm not talking about 8K, I'm talking about 4K at 60, but I still think 4K at 30 is perfectly fine. I mean, a lot of phones that were coming out at this time still only had 4K at 30, so that may be the only place where you may feel a little outdated, but a lot of people still use 1080p, so it's totally okay. Now, the features built into this camera, I think, are still pretty current, because when you have, portrait mode, you don't have portrait mode, but when you have all these other type of, accessories on this type of device, even though it's only a single camera setup, you still have a lot of features in the software. So I think that's a pretty big advantage when it comes down to it. So I don't think this camera is outdated because it's a single camera setup. You still have a lot of features built into, which is really great. So the front camera may be the biggest problem though, and I feel like this is just one area where I'm gonna have to kind of diss the S8 Plus as much as I don't want to. It has an 8 megapixel wide angle lens. It also has a 2 megapixel iris scanner, but I think that's only for, scanning your eyes and stuff. But with this 8 megapixel sensor, it can only shoot 1440p. I wish it did have, like 4K on the front, and even at 1440p it would be okay, but I just don't think the front camera of this thing is all that great. I think it looks kind of grainy for most photos. It's definitely not perfect, and I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I would expect it to be a little bit better at the long run, but I think at the end of the day, it's an okay camera setup on the front, but it's a pretty good, camera setup on the back. So the rear facing camera is actually pretty good for the most part. So in terms of the whole entire camera setup, that pretty much covers it up. Now,